express my gratitude to all the doctors who are selflessly fighting for COVID-19 situation today, and I'm sure the entire medical fraternity is safe today at home. At Dr. Reddy's, good health is always our goal. We see medicines not just as molecules but as means to help patients regain their health. We believe good health can't wait. Keeping this philosophy at center, we are always keen to upgrade the knowledge of practicing physicians in CVAD management. Even at COVID-19 situation, we as an organization took this step to educate all the practicing physicians across the country through a lucid program with the eminent doctor of the country, Dr. A. Srinivas Kumar. So here I take the opportunity to introduce Dr. Srinivas Kumar. He is a senior consultant cardiologist, director cardiology and clinical research, Apollo Group of Hospitals, Jubilee Hills, Hyderabad. He is an professor of medicine, Apollo Institute of Medical Sciences, and he is an chairman, FACS Professional Services. He is also the founder, director, and CEO of FACS, that is Fraternity of Advanced Cardiovascular Techniques and Solutions. He is the founder director TCT India Conference as well as CSI NIC Chairman 2018-19 and also the past president of Andhra Pradesh CSI. Now, I request Dr. Srinivas Kumar to talk on Double Trouble, the diabetes and hypertension, improving outcomes through 24 hours BP control with combination therapy. Sir, over to you.
Yeah, good evening, everybody. Thanks for your kind introduction. We thank Reddy Laboratories and all the people involved in arranging the webinar today. These are tough times in which all of us are going through. COVID times, corona pandemic is going on, but we should appreciate Reddy's for arranging this because COVID can make us socially, yeah, but distancing, but not social isolation. Because we need to work upon and we need to improve our knowledge, skills, and treat patients to the best of our efforts and energy. And probably in these tough times, it is all the more required for us to take care of patients as well as at the same time take care of ourselves and our health too. And as we know, in these COVID times, one of the important risk factor by which more people are suffering into trouble, one of the factor apart from the elderly age, diabetes, heart failure is people who have hypertension. And there's also some interesting data come up with the various types of drugs which are being used in this scenario. And we'll discuss about that controversy of ACE-ARB in your discussions when the COVID infection times, whether it is safe to use it or not. Now we are almost clear on it. So with this introduction regarding the present scenario, what I would like to take you through in the coming 20 minutes or so is basically take you through something what is important in the management of hypertension, especially when the hypertensive patients who are associated with diabetes. That's why we titled this talk as Double Trouble, Diabetes and Hypertension. Now we also have a COVID trouble going on. Maybe it becomes triple, but originally this diabetes and hypertension is a deadly duo. And improving outcomes through 24-hour BP control with how to do that, mostly with the help of combination therapy. This is precisely what we are going to discuss in the coming 20 minutes or so. This slide brings best wishes from Apollo Group of Hospital, where we are trying to coordinate across Apollos and try to do good to the patients as well as do some positive research. And I'm proud to present our FACS professional service colleagues. 27 of them run services in multiple hospitals, which are mentioned here, with a single point of agenda of delivering the world-class care to the patients. In these tough times, again, this type of group practice is very well required and appreciated. European Heart Journal also appreciated our work and say this is the way to go. In India, is cardiology practice ready to shift from solo to group? That's how I think Apollo, our main organizations, also liked us and wanted to lead their cardiology front. Coming back to our topic today and what we would like to see, the agenda of the coming discussion and lecture plan is basically what is this vicious twins of hypertension and diabetes? Why is it so? And then what are the optimal treatment target levels? What is the blood pressure levels which we need to achieve in these patients? And then what is the newer concepts which are coming up in hypertension from the stepped care approach to usage of combination therapy right away? And the combination therapy, what is the rationale of using this combination therapy? And what is the best combination therapy available? The data will try to review some of the trials which have come up. And BP variability, 24-hour variability is an important found to be risk factor. How best to control this to prevent complications to patients. and then conclude in the end saying about all the things which we discussed. And in the end, I would also take this opportunity to make one important announcement, especially which would be useful for all the needy patients, which all the doctors who have logged in this webinar would like to inform to them, so that patients will get the benefit out of it. Is, as we said, diabetes and hypertension. These are the double troubles or the vicious sins, what we are calling on. Why is it so? Because most of the times they go in hand in hand. People who have hypertension are 2 to 2.5 times more prone to develop diabetes within coming 5 years. So please take this point in mind. Suppose many of you who just have hypertension should not relax too much, because if you don't take care of yourself, don't maintain yourself, follow the diet and healthy lifestyle, you are likely to get into diabetes also. You are like 2.5 times more likely to get into diabetes if you have hypertension. On the other hand, if you see people who have diabetes, 40 to 80% of the diabetics have hypertension already. Then this is how we call it as both of them go together. What is this both going together is doing is, it has effects on each and every part of the body. If you see, it is the kidney, it leads to CKD, nephropathy. In the heart, it leads to various coronary artery disease, and also leads to LVH and heart failures. And then if in eye, it leads to retinopathy. In peripheral vascular disease, it leads to peripheral arterial disease. And then in the brain, this is another important complication of hypertension, that is patients getting infarctions and hemorrhages, suffering with the stroke. So that is the problem of this combination of blood pressure and diabetes. We all know but about it, then we will also see further. And the hypertension and diabetes, what is happening, how the risk is increasing, if you see, analyze further, 4.4% of deaths of diabetes is contributed to hypertension, and 10% of deaths of hypertension is contributed to diabetes. So it is not the directly only sugar levels or hypertension levels. We will also understand, and patients who have diabetes also, control of blood pressure is important, because combinedly they cause more trouble. If you see the proportion of diabetic complications attributable to hypertension, stroke is 75%. Predominantly hypertension contributes here. Coronary artery disease is 35%. End stage kidney disease again 50%. Eye disease, leg amputation is about one third of patients. That's how it's important for us to take care of one other entity if a patient has a primarily other problem. If you try to see what is the Indian scenario of this deadly duo, as you know, India is called the diabetic capital of the world. Hyderabad, unfortunately, is also is a diabetabad. We have huge number of diabetic patients in our country, in our Hyderabad too. Every fifth person in India is a diabetic. And if you don't take care now, then probably by 2030, about 366 million people are likely to become diabetics. And in hypertension too, we are again stimulating the same pathway as diabetes. Every hypertension capital also we could become in future, provided if we don't take care of our lifestyle and other things. Now, as of now, if you see, 1 out of every 3 persons is a hypertensive, and there's twofold increase in hypertension way back from our independent time to now. We have about 1.13 billion population. That's a huge numbers of the country, and 1 out of every 2 diabetics has hypertension. So if you have diabetes, you are likely to get into hypertension. If you have hypertension, you are also likely to get into diabetes, and combinedly they produce more problems. And each 10 reduction in blood pressure reduces micro and vascular complications in diabetes too. So if you have a diabetes, just don't be happy just by controlling sugars, but we also need to control blood pressure. The idea is, by 10 reduction, you will produce a lot of benefits in these patients. In this UKPDS trial, what is studied is 1,148 hypertensive patients with diabetes. When they followed up for 8.4 years, the relative risk reduction happened significantly. Stroke decreased more, because stroke is predominantly related to hypertension, 44% reduction. Heart attacks decreased by 37%. Deaths due to diabetes again decreased by about one third. So that's how it's very important for us to control hypertension also in patients who have diabetics. If you see, this is another good thing why we are all wanting to know what is optimal levels. If people who are confused to what low the blood pressure values are to be brought out, be it be 130/80 or 140/90, this hypertension optimal treatment trial, heart trial, which was done before, clarified it further. But reduction of diastolic blood pressure to less than 80 causes more benefits. The decreases CV mortality significantly. If you see 11.1 versus 3.7 decreases stroke, decreases MI, decreases major cardiovascular events. So the target level what we need to achieve now is probably less than 130/80 and not 140/90 like in non-diabetic patients. That's what is again shown by various guideline recommendations. ACCHA or European Society, Indian Society, Hypertension Society, all of them recommended blood pressure to be brought down to less than 130/80 in patients who have diabetes. And then, if you see, the diabetes blood pressure control is more important than glucose control. If you do only diabetes control, the reduction of risk was only 12% and 10%. Whereas, if the blood pressure control in these patients actually decreased more deaths and more target organ damage, which has happened. So that's why it is very important to control blood pressure. If a patient of diabetes also has hypertension, because hypertension control in such individuals is producing more risk reduction than the sugar control alone. Then I would like to bring your attention to this relatively new concept, I would say, in hypertension. Previously, we used to decide blood pressure treatment only on the absolute values which this every individual had. Now, this risk stratification and seeing the patient in total has come. So, patient who has hypertension also has diabetes will be treated at a higher level of risk. So, that fellow needs to start drug therapy very early on. Even if the blood pressures are not very high, you need to start treatment. Whereas, on the other hand, if a patient has a very minimal increase in blood pressure without other risk factors like diabetes and other things, you can still try to control with lifestyle modifications. Moderate risk, again, you add drugs depending upon the levels which this patient has. So, what is this concept is basically you treat a person, individual as whole, not by just blood pressure values as such. And the same blood pressure value of 150, 100 in a patient who has diabetes has a different connotation compared to those person who do know has hypertension without any other risk factor. So if a patient has this combination together, there is more chance of getting into trouble. That's why we need to be aggressive in treating these patients properly so as to prevent problems in future. Then coming to now that we know that hypertension and diabetes are deadly duo, and we also need to know that blood pressure, we knew that blood pressure control is important apart from sugars. Then we should also know what is the choice of antihypertensive drugs which we need to use in this. This is generally a debated topic, but generally indications and contraindications are now based on the coexisting conditions which are described now after the recommendations. Obviously, many of us now know wiser that in patients who have diabetes, ACE inhibitors and receptor blockers are generally the drugs of choice. But what is also important for us to understand is don't keep on fretting and discussing only about the choice of antihypertensives. It's also very important to control the blood pressure value as well. There's no point using a small dose of ACE inhibitors or receptor blockers when the blood pressure values still are around 160, 100. So what is important is blood pressure control also is important apart from the type of drug which you're using. When we try to see which is what is important, all the type of drugs which are used, be it with thiazide, beta blockers which went out of vogue, or receptor blockers, ACE inhibitors, calcium channel blocker, any drug for that matter, obviously will do good to the patients compared to placebo. Be it with coronary artery disease or strokes, the numbers significantly come down. So if you try to see ACE inhibitors and ARBs, patients who have hypertension compared to placebo, RAS blockers behaved better. Initially, it was thought that RAS blockers should be used only if ACE inhibitors are not tolerated, but we came a long way now. Receptor blockers are also indicated in place of ACE inhibition. This meta-regression analysis of 28 outcome trials, I won't go bother you too much with the graphics, but what we try to analyze in this is basically to see how much benefit the patient is getting by the blood pressure control, how much is the drug individual class effect of a drug. About two-thirds of the benefit comes from the absolute blood pressure reduction, and about one-third benefits come from the type of drug which you're using. In other words, to say, if you control the blood pressure values very well with only diuretic, probably you will not get this additional one-third benefit which comes with ACE inhibitor or receptor blocker or calcium channel blocker. So we need to have both, keep both in view. You need to have proper blood pressure control as well as do it with the right drug. That is the essence of our discussion today. Then all of us, when we were students, we studied this traditional stepped care approach. That is, you start with one drug, beta blocker, then add up another drug, and then if it is not controlled, we were adding up the drugs. This is called as traditional stepped care approach. But the problems in this were though efficacy was gradually increasing, the safety aspects were decreasing. And by the patient, by the time his blood pressure was controlled, he already was suffering into trouble like CKD and sometimes strokes. And then when you have too many drugs, also patient's adherence was a problem. Persistence of care, taking the tablets were a problem. So we now know that there's a paradigm shift to initiate with combination therapy rather than start. Now you know that the world has become very faster. Same thing, you can't afford to wait a long time with a single drug and wait till the response and see. Now we know that the combination therapy straight away with two or three drugs could be beneficial in these patients, especially when the patient has difficult to treat blood pressure. And this is when they have blood pressure variability, which again could lead to stroke and MI. So if you see now the combination therapy, how it benefited, the advantages of initiating a combination therapy straight away was seen in this meta-analysis of 11,000 patients in 42 trials. The combination therapy, that is, for example, if you start with calcium channel blocker, iron receptor blockers, basically, rather than individual drug alone, these found to be 5 times more effective than increasing the dose of one drug. And if you see the number of events prevented, the heart attacks or strokes, for one single drug, how many you prevented, you can prevent four such events by combination therapy. That is the effectiveness of the combination therapy. That's how the combination therapy has picked up in day to day practice. And many of us are now become wiser to use combination therapy. The key advantages of initiating combination therapy is efficacy increases, the safety increases, and because of less number of drugs, the adherence with patient also improves, and that's how the patients will be able to take these drugs well, and then that improves the long term outcomes. And sometimes the side effects of one drug will be mitigated by other drug, which we'll see in this combination of ACE inhibitors and calcium channel blockers in the coming slides further. And that's how we now know that combination therapy is useful. And we also know that in diabetes patients and hypertension, many of them drugs monotherapy won't be efficient, and we need a combination therapy. So to achieve the target value of 130 by 80, we need a combination therapy. If you see this in this trial, which is mentioned here, the darkest blue is the more than three drugs were required to achieve the target blood pressure. The lighter ones are one drug or less. If you see, about one third to half of them significantly require more than one drug for blood pressure control. So that's how the rationale for combination therapy, as I said, if you use a combination therapy, BP reduction achieves faster. And when high risk conditions exist, probably relatively shorter time you control the blood pressure, the problems happening to the patients, the delays in the treatment are reduced. And if you attack by one type of drug and the other pathogenesis increases in the body, there could be again problems happening because of the opposite effects. That's how the combinations will have protective benefits, and initial combination itself, probably with the combination drugs, will make the patient more compliant. If you see all the trials, why we have come to this stage is all the trials which are mentioned, be it BALHAT, renal, UKPDS, many of these, especially in diabetic patients, more significantly 2 to 3 point or 2.53 drugs were required in their control of blood pressure, and one drug was alone was not sufficient in controlling pressures in this. You see in this again meta-analysis what we mentioned before, compared to monotherapy, be it with thiazide diuretic or be it with beta blocker, be it with ACE inhibitor or calcium channel blocker, the combinations always will be more effective in reducing the blood pressure. You see the bar there is always higher compared to the individual drugs. So obviously there's no doubt that combinations work better. Then better than the doubling the dose of, suppose you give one drug and double the dose of the drug, and compared to that effect, compared to combination, the effect won't be double, but it will be much much more than the doubling the dose of same drug. That is because the different pathogenetic mechanisms of blood pressure are addressed. The initiating patients with two drug therapy in diabetic patients, irrespective of baseline levels, also will do good to these patients. But probably, as the higher the blood pressure, then probably you will need the more benefit of more the two drugs or three drugs, depending upon the baseline values. But the benefits are there in whatever the baseline values of pressures which each patient has. If you see some of the landmark trials which have come, like Accomplish is one, avoiding cardiovascular events through combination therapy in patients living with systolic hypertension. This is a new type of trial which had compared not one drug with other, but it compared calcium channel blockers uh, along with RAS inhibitors versus RAS inhibitors and diuretics. What came out, obviously, we know that calcium channel blockers and RAS inhibitors came out as winners compared to or the diuretics. The renal study is again reduction in endpoints in diabetes and angiotensin 2, that is with angiotensin antagonist losartan, and it decreased 32% hospitalizations and 35% proteinurias. That's how we came to know that this is helpful in even in renal protection. The guidelines everybody came through, and all of them said that the treatment option in diabetic hypertension is a combination therapy, not the individual drug alone. And probably calcium channel blockers and ARBs or ACE inhibitors are the preferred combination. Now we'll see the various types of combinations which are available in market. This crystal maze shows us which are the various combinations which can be given to these patients and what are available in the market. If you see, the green ones are the preferred combination drugs which are to be taken, but the red one is not preferred. What are the green ones which are thick barred? What was preferred drugs like diuretics with ACE inhibitors, or ACE inhibitors with a calcium channel antagonist, or calcium channel antagonist with receptor blocker. This is probably the most popular. That's how the Reddy's and many other companies have launched a combination of receptor blockers and probably calcium channel blockers, and that many lot of data came through this. What is no is this red line here. ACE inhibitor and receptor blocker should not be combined, because combinedly there is more incidence of hyperkalemia, more incidence of hypotension. So this combination is not preferred. If you see, calcium channel blockers with receptor blocker, the advantages, the synergistic mechanism of action, vascular protective mechanisms, especially endothelial function improvement, neutral and metabolic profile, and then the nephroprotective and reduces incidence of edema. That is, calcium channel blockers, we know that sometimes you get pedal edema, but usage of this receptor blocker along with it decreases the occurrence of edema. We will see the mechanism in a cartoon in coming slides. The greater capacity to reduce morbidity and mortality rates in high risk hypertensive patients than the RAS inhibitor and diuretic combination. This we came to know by accomplished trial. So that's how the combination of calcium channel blocker and the receptor blocker is more popular, especially in patients of diabetic hypertensives. Then this is the synergy of counter regulation, what we mentioned. One does one work, the other drug, the other work. And that's how combinedly the net benefit comes to the patient. What is calcium channel blocker does arterial dilatation, and whereas ARBs does venodilatation. One helps in heart failure and RAS blockade, other helps in prevention of nephropathy and other problems. That's how the combination of this has additional values. So the amlodipine and telmisartan is the combined preferable combination. If you see the pharmacokinetic benefits also, the amlodipine has a very long half-life of 35 hours compared to all others. Similarly, with telmisartan also has a longer half-life. You see, amlodipine is again the most studied calcium channel blocker in a lot of trials. ALHA trial was a large trial, 33,000 patients, follow-up was for 5 years, and the ASCOT accomplished various other trials, had a large data with amlodipine. That's how it has become established as a first-line drug in therapy of hypertensive patients. We have about 86,000 plus patients studied over 27 years of follow-up, showing that this drug is effective and useful in controlling blood pressure. As I mentioned, telmisartan about the receptor blockers, this is the one which has a longer half-life, over 24 hours, and then it also has additional PPAR gamma stimulation activity, which is especially beneficial in improving the insulin sensitivity in diabetic patients. So that's how not only control of blood pressure, but it also helps a little in controlling of sugar in these patients of diabetic hypertensives. The telmisartan again comes to see the most studied receptor blocker out of all the sartans which are available, 50,000 plus population data. We have now this molecule showing that is very effective. And if you see, this is the only drug I feel in cardiology where right from the risk factor level to again minimal damage level at the LVH level, or patient suffers heart attack and goes into LV dysfunction, then end stage disease, renal disease or heart failure. In every step of pathogenesis of disease, you have a data now coming up with telmisartan. Always this drug came out as winner compared to the placebo, other drugs. This has found to be beneficial. That's how I think potency of control of blood pressure. Amlodipine is the master, and telmisartan has the data of protection in entire armamentarium of pathogenesis of development of cardiovascular disease. This study, the Team Star 5 study, showed that the combination of telmisartan and amlodipine as a single pill actually produces more benefits, rightfully so. If you see, compared to the lower doses of drugs, probably a combination of 10 milligrams and 80 milligrams has the maximum benefit. That's how these combinations are given in more number of patients. And if you use this drug, probably 3 out of 4 patients will be able to achieve the target values in these patients of hypertension. Amlodipine and telmisartan also has this rapid achievement of blood pressure right away from the day one, the first week onwards. You have better control of blood pressure. So actually, that's how the side effects and target organ development will be also less. If you see, obviously, the 45 combination versus about 85 and 10 combinations, you have more better control of blood pressure with higher dose. And then probably this is shown that throughout 24-hour control is also better with this combination because both have longer half-life. The early morning risk of getting into trouble of strokes and other things also will be efficiently controlled because 24-hour blood pressure control of these two molecules. Then if you see, more than 50% of patients achieved significant reduction of blood pressure. Probably the reduction of blood pressure will be more with higher doses compared to the lower doses, as we understand. Then similar BP reductions in diabetics and non-diabetics, and 95.7% of patients showed good response in blood pressure even diabetic patients. The team's TS severe hypertension study showed that probably the maximum benefit happens with a combination of 80 milligrams of telmisartan with 10 milligrams of amlodipine compared to the individual drugs which are shown here, as we already discussed about it. Blood pressure variability, again, the more blood pressure variability happens, the more likely the patient is likely to go. And if you use a long-acting drug like amlodipine and telmisartan, you will have more cardiovascular benefits. The amlodipine in accomplished trial showed 20% reduction. Camliot again showed 41% reduction of heart failure, 27% reduction of coronary revascularization. Prevent study, ALHAT study, again is a large trial, showed a significant reduction of strokes and CVDs along with amlodipine. The telmisartan, similarly, as I mentioned, has a large data in each and every subsets of patients, be it nephroprotection, cardioprotection, stroke reduction, everything there is data with telmisartan. And the telmisartan with ramipril were again compared in on-target trial, and telmisartan performed equally well as ramipril. That's how the guidelines changed now. Either or you can use it. Earlier ones were you use the receptor blocker only when it was patient was not tolerating ACE inhibitors, but now you can use receptor blockers as first line drugs. Then better effect of cardiovascular reduction with very good tolerability, especially when you have ACE inhibitors. Ramipril, though it was doing good, but it has side effects of cough and other problems. And with this, the efficacy was maintained with less of side effects. That's what is shown in on-target trial. If you see the renal protection, both amlodipine and telmisartan showed significant, by the increasing doses, probably the urine albumin excretion decreased further. The maximum benefit happened with the maximum dosage of these molecules. Amlodipine also had renal protection benefits with 48% reduction of CKD. As I mentioned, two-thirds of benefits of these molecules happen with significant reduction of blood pressure, and one-third is a class effect. Amlodipine is very powerful in reducing BP. That's how wherever you use it, it produces benefits. The telmisartan, this innovation trial, showed that microalbuminuria significantly decrease in even in normotensives. In hypertensives, the decrease of uh, uh, albumin levels will be furthermore with usage of this molecule. Telmisartan in some of these trials which I mentioned are detailed trial, Vivaldi, and on-target. On-target is a large trial. You need to show the telmisartan showed major outcome benefits. And Transcend is a sub-study of on-target in which patients who are not tolerant to ACE inhibitors were to put on this telmisartan, and that also showed equal similar renal protection. Then safety and tolerability. This is what is very important. I said the sum of the side effects, how it is reduced, I will show in the next slide. This is the slide which it. Calcium channel blocker basically does arterial dilatation, but venules are not dilated. So what happens because of increased pressure here, there's edema, fluid accumulation happens. That's how the commonest side effect we notice with amlodipine is the pedal edema. Whereas if you use a combination of receptor blocker, what happens? It does venodilatation also. So when the both pressures increase, both get dilated, the edema part comes down significantly. That's how the side effect of edema, which happens, decreased by 90% if you use a combination of amlodipine with telmisartan. So even to decrease the side effects, this combination is useful. And now we have also data coming up that chlorthalidone could be more effective than hydrochlorothiazide in these patients of telmisartan plus chlorthalidone, slightly more potent than hydrochlorothiazide. So if you have to use a triple combination, amlodipine, telmisartan, chlorthalidone, that's what is generally nowadays being used. Thus, to conclude, the talk, I think what we have learned is untreated hypertension, it has its own morbidity and reduces life expectancy by 5 years. But the good thing is, if you control the BP well, then the significant reduction of mortality and morbidity happens. Number to needed to treat is significantly very small. Very few diseases have this. Only 11 members are treated to decrease morbidity, mortality. That is, number needed to treat is very less. That is, drugs is more effective in therapy. The risk assessment, probably entire total, the patient assessment, whether patient has associated target organ damage, associated diabetes, other things, we need to see the patient as a whole. And effective blood pressure reduction is now required, and the threshold for requirement of combination therapy is low. Now we know that combination therapy is preferable because it does faster benefits. The best combination, what we have seen, is amlodipine and telmisartan, but we need to institute this therapy early and the controlled BP to target values of less than 130/80. That is to prevent the target organ damage and improve the patient outcomes. I think with this, the regular hypertension talk over. What I mentioned is I would share some good news which happened at Apollo. This has happened some time back. Created a record by doing 5 trans-aortic valve procedures on a single day. Not to say too much about it, but I want all the doctors who are logged in to know that there is another significant new modality of therapy has come in cardiology, interventional cardiology, where this aortic valve, which are cutting surgical replacements were done. Now replacement happens through trans-aortic valve replacement just through femoral artery 14 French, and patient gets up next day and gets discharged. We could do significant number of patients. I'm happy to say that we are one of the leading centers in the countries, and we have good experience, and a lot of these patients did well on this therapy. Why I wanted to highlight this is any of the needy patients who are thought to be sick and not suitable for surgery, please don't write them off. Let them come and check with us whether therapy is possible. And I wanted to bring this another important aspect in these COVID times. A lot of us, if you are not directly involved in taking care of patients, and because of a regular elective work goes down for cardiologists, many of us have free times, if at all, and you convert your free time to productive time without wasting watching only movies and TVs. What we thought in this COVID challenge for cardiologists is upscale your skills, get some new skill, professional or artistic, upscale your knowledge and publish more, or become more healthier or fit. At least do walking, yoga, meditation, all that to maintain your health. And a group of cardiologists or cardiologists who has done the best, if you communicate to us, we would like to felicitate them, reward them during the coming TCT India conference. It will be again a virtual event like virtual webinar today, July 30, 31st, and 1st August. I request all of you to follow this, and not only the cardiologist, any doctor for that matter, persons in Reddy Laboratories or anybody could follow this advice and get benefited out of these tough times of COVID, and make it more useful and productive. Thank you very much for patient hearing. I think I'll be happy to take some questions. A lot of questions are coming up onto right of me in chat box. I think we can take questions. Thank you again for patient hearing. Can we make this chat box bigger? Can you remove the slides, and technical team, can you remove the slides and make my picture and chat box bigger? Yeah. Shall I go on, or one of you are coordinating? Okay. I will take the chat questions. Then probably some of the questions which are sent in WhatsApp, I think can be again discussed later after this. Shaukat A wants to know, you suggested start early, which would be a better option, monotherapy or combination therapy of calcium channel blocker with ARB or diuretic. That's what is the crux what we mentioned. Depending upon the type of patient, subset of patients, especially patients of diabetic hypertension combination, their blood pressure won't be able to control with one drug itself. That's how the combination drugs need to be preferred. Probably if your blood pressure values are relatively lower, the stage 1 type of hypertension, you can start with a smaller, lower dose combination. Like I think Reddy's has something called Optidose, which has a lower combination, like 2.5 milligrams of amlodipine and 20 milligrams of telmisartan. Still has the combination benefit, but a lesser dosing and with minimal side effects. And then if a patient has higher values, probably you can go to higher combination values, like 5 milligrams of amlodipine and probably receptor blocker 40, and also diuretic if required. Then that's how the entire message is. Please don't stick to monotherapy. Monotherapy is okay if a patient has a blood pressure of very normal without any other risk factors, has only blood pressure value also minimally increased like 145 by 95, you can try. But by and large, if patient is diabetic and hypertensive, they'll be resistant to therapy with one drug, and that's how the combination therapy should be preferred. Jayaprakash, the patient with high systolic blood pressure, what would be the ideal drug to control systolic blood pressure and take care of comorbid condition? This is used to be a standard question in after any CME or any webinar. Now, what is your drugs of choice in patient who have high blood pressure? Now, actually, there's no more individual whims and fancy, be it be Srinivas Kumar, be it be some other cardiologist, be it be Jayaprakash. We need to follow guideline directed therapy. Now, what is recommended is you need to select the drug depending upon the comorbid pathology which that patient has. If a patient has hypertension along with diabetes mellitus, you have ACE inhibitors or receptor blockers as drug of choice. If a patient of hypertension has coronary artery disease, you take beta blocker. If patient has hypertension and has heart failure, you also use ACE inhibitors, beta blockers, and diuretics. So there's no more ambiguity, no more individual whims and fancy. But if you have a blood pressure isolated without any comorbid pathology, then probably the commonest drug which is used if it is a lower level of blood pressure, probably receptor blocker like telmisartan. If a patient's blood pressure is very high, probably calcium channel blocker like amlodipine. Dr. Ramaswamy, I don't know, he was our assistant, the same Ramaswamy, doctor, physician, or somebody else. Good evening, sir. Thanks for joining. Various articles and use of ACE, ARB in COVID patients. Your suggestion should be continue with ARB and ACE inhibitor. This is a very good question, sir. Introduction remarks only, I mentioned this. I definitely wanted to cover this aspect. Good that you brought this here. Previously, because the COVID virus is entering the lung with this receptors of ANG mediated pathway, what people thought is usage of these ACE inhibitors or ARBs could expose the receptors more, and probably more damage could happen in these patients of COVID infected patients or COVID prone patients. But now it is proven beyond doubt that, like in any other pathology, wherever you use receptor blockers or ACE inhibitors, they come out as winners. So same thing happened in COVID too. Now we have many data coming up in the various studies published in NEJM and others that you should usage of ARBs, ACE inhibitors should not be stopped. And in fact, if you stopped, patients are having more problems. The initial whatever little association was seen, it is only a chance association. And now patients of COVID infected patients also, you're not supposed to stop this drug, because stopping this drug again increase the mortality. On the other hand, if a patient is having this hypertension before, you need to continue ACE inhibitors or receptor blockers. Please don't stop, because stopping is increasing the causing more trouble. We are now going a step further to see whether just small dose ACE inhibitor receptor blocker could do good in patients who is infected with COVID, even though they don't have blood pressure. We don't have a randomized trial as of now, but they are in process. So what I would like to mention is they're doing good to the even in these COVID infected patients. Please don't stop the molecule, continue those molecules. Dr. G.S. Raju, as a cardiologist, have you used azalenlipine in your patients, especially with comorbid conditions? What is your recommendation? Though it is supposed to have some advantages, I am a very strong proponent and user of telmisartan. Not because of it only Reddy Laboratories makes, that relationship is also there. But telmisartan is a molecule which has shown has the longest half life, and is a molecule which is shown right from the receptor level, in risk factor level to pathogenesis level to LVH level to a heart failure level to end stage heart disease level. Everywhere, wherever telmisartan is studied, it came out as benefit. And it also has this additional PPAR gamma stimulation benefit, which is not there with other receptor blockers. That's how, in a combination of diabetics and hypertension, we use this molecule more. I didn't use this other molecule. Various types of other things are also coming up, but I am not competent, the right person, because we don't have so much of experience with the other molecule. Anuradha, sir, can you please highlight on the down titration approach from a triple combination of ARB, CCB, and diuretic? Yeah, this is another good point. Many of the patients and some doctors also feel that the blood pressure, once it is controlled, you can stop the drug. Unfortunately, many patients do it also. Then they come back with remote increase in blood pressure levels, and they cause into trouble. Sometimes they could get depth into stroke, sometimes heart failures get precipitated. So now all of us, the doctors, know that it is not good to stop the drugs totally. Then coming to whether you can decrease the dosage of drugs a little. When the blood pressure values successfully within to the 3-month gap intervals are less than the target levels which are indicated, like in this is less than 130/80. Then if you, again I'm telling you, if a patient can tolerate the lower levels of blood pressure, we know now from JNC 7 times that the risk of getting into trouble is least when somebody can maintain a pressure of 110/70. Obviously all of us cannot maintain such low levels, and you could also develop some coronary ischemia, things like that in patients who have coronary artery disease. That's how we have fixed up the target of less than 130/80. But if a patient's levels are low without any side effects, you need not come down on the drug, because each drug has its own other drug effects, which I said one third of benefits happen with the class effect of the drug. But if you somebody has a side effect or blood pressure is too low or not able to tolerate it, then you can think of de-escalating the drug. The first drug which to be de-escalated is a drug which has least benefits. In other words, to say, if you have a calcium channel blocker, ARB, and diuretic, if a patient is not having heart failure, and sometimes this diuretic could also produce some side effects like hyponatremia and weakness, you try to withdraw that. And especially in fluid depleted states, diuretics could cause hypotension. Then after that, probably you won't be able to get down to single drug in patients who have required three drugs, but one of it you could down titrate. But if you want to see further reduction, you need to have a close watch on the blood pressure level. Generally pressures go up again. So I think from three drugs to coming down two drugs, it can happen. But coming from two drugs to one drug is a little difficult. But in some patients who have stress for some time in between, or had some trouble in between which led to high blood pressures, then that stress goes and the blood pressure's values come down. That is a different scenario again. That we are not talking. There, probably patients could become off drugs also later once the stress levels go up. But in general, patients who do not have any other secondary precipitating factor, generally the down titration to single drug becomes very difficult. Dr. Vijay Gopal, I don't know, you're a very good physician, Vijay Gopal. Is the same one or not? This webinar is not showing their faces. We wish it could show. Amlodipine is a good drug, but pedal edema is a problem. How do we mitigate this, and what suggestions do we give to our patients? This is a very good question. That's what I discussed in my talk. If you have to see, the only problem which we face actually with amlodipine is the pedal edema. Unfortunately, many times we are at loss when the patient develops pedal edema, what to do with such patients. We also know, first reassure the patient, but many of the patients will be worried that it is heart failure leading to it. Tell them that your heart pumping is all right. It's not because of that, it is a side effect. That itself relieves anxiety, stress of patients. Then, depending upon whether the blood pressure value is well controlled with edema, or the drug didn't do well, but again produce side effect, we have to take our approach. If generally amlodipine controls the blood pressure very well, but produces edema, and then in that case, it is good to continue this drug and try to decrease edema by adding a small dose diuretic, or the combination of receptor blocker, what we mentioned, has a different mechanism. It causes venodilatation. That's how edema incidence is supposed to decrease by 90%. And there are other methods like other types of amlodipines, which as S-amlodipine is also supposed to be having slightly lesser incidence of edema compared to that. That also you could try. But generally, if you decrease the dose of amlodipine a little and add a telmisartan like drug, then the edema part will settle. But if on the other hand, if you have a patient where the blood pressure continues to remain high with edema, then probably there's no point in continuing only with amlodipine, which happens less frequently, because as I said, amlodipine is a very perfect potent drug which controls the blood pressure very well. Other question is from Bhimanathan Shankar: amlodipine versus sildenafil versus benedipine. Actually, this could again become another talk of lecture. As we are running short of time, I think we can't go into details of all this. But amlodipine is clearly a drug which has long testing and seen in multiple trials. More than lakhs and patients are tested. In all subgroups of patients, amlodipine is tested. So that's how amlodipine has proven itself. Though sildenafil claims that, and belanepine claims that in patients who have proteinuria, sometimes the amlodipine usage could increase little excretion of protein. But again, in large trials, it is disproven, and it is actually useful, even because two-thirds of benefit happen with absolute reduction of blood pressure. You please don't forget that. And sildenafil, if at all, if you want to use it, you have the combination is not 5 is equal to 5. 5 is equal to 10 or maybe 20. So if a patient has blood pressure controlled by 5 milligrams, you developed some problem, you want to change to sildenafil. If you use 5 milligrams of sildenafil, blood pressure rises too much, so that won't be sufficient. So values which are required are 10 milligrams or 20 milligrams. So benedipine is another newer type of long-acting drug which has come up. I have little experience with it. I can't comment directly on it, but suppose somebody is comfortable, if your blood pressure patient's blood pressure values are controlled, probably you can use it. But most important is to see whether blood pressures are controlled well or not. And that's how I think the chat box questions, most of them I tend to cover. Do we have time now to further continue? I think we have 5 minutes more. Any other questions which have come in any other format? Dr. Ganeshwar? Mr. Ganeshwar or Kaushik? Technical team, can you get them onto this thing? Yeah, there's one more question which has come from Dr. Tirupati Rao Dekonda. Can we start ARB in a COVID patient? That's what I mentioned in my initial talk. If a patient is on, in the initial discussion, I would say, the patient is on the drug, please don't stop it. If a patient is not taking the drug, also now people feel that probably it could be beneficial to use this drug, but definitely not stop it. And we have come a stage from where we are about to see whether usage of this drug in a small dose could it benefit these patients even in COVID. But definitely don't stop the drug if patient was is already on ACE or ARB.
Yes, sir. So,
Yeah.
sir, I have a few questions that has come on WhatsApp, sir. So first question is, how is the role of amlodipine in nephro patients? Any specific published data?
Yeah, that's what in many of the trials which have shown, specifically the blood pressure control showed a lot of benefit. The CKD patients with hypertension, again, blood pressure control goes a long way in preventing the progression of disease. We are now combination because one drug generally is not sufficient in controlling the pressures. The studies are also done with a small dose of a combination of receptor blockers. But what we need to see is again, control of blood pressure goes a long way in preventing CKD, but the alone generally is not used because receptor blockers, ACE inhibitors are supposed to be having prevention of worsening of renal function by decreasing or slowing of GFR. That's how we don't use amlodipine as the first line to prevent the progression of nephropathy, but you always take the help of ACE inhibitors or receptor blockers. But if blood pressures are high, yes, then you also use amlodipine. You need to have exercise caution. People say that when you have a lot of proteinuria, sometimes proteinuria could be increased in, which is shown in some of the studies with this. But what I strongly feel is blood pressure control helps in preventing nephropathy more than worsening, which is happening with a little increase in proteinuria. But if you can control blood pressures with sildenafil, it may be preferable if at all if patient has severe proteinuria. Next question.
Sure, sir. And the next question, sir, guidelines are suggesting to start with a combination therapy. Then where do we use monotherapy?
As I said, if patient has no other risk factors, he is a low risk patient, and patient has a stage 1 hypertension, like blood pressure value is only 145 by 95, or with no other problems, after you have tried the pharmacological measures, lifestyle modification, excluding any other precipitating factors, those are the subset of patients where you can start with a small dose single drug. But mind you, if a patients go more than 150 by 100, now actually latest classification which has down said more than 140 by 90 itself is again higher grade, then you need to take the help of combination. So by and large, unless patient is a low risk patient where you can get away with small dose of ACE inhibitors or receptor blockers, by and large, many of these patients we use combination therapy, be it be combination lower doses, not the full higher doses. So in the early stages, you use a combination with lower doses. Then, if it's not controlled, you increase the combination with higher dose. I think Reddy's has a combination of lower doses, Aptidose, and higher doses, Telsat, like various other companies could have it. Like that, we take the help. So answer the question straight. Only in patients who are low risk with no other comorbidities, with the blood pressure values with very minimal increase, you can try with little increase. But what we also need to realize is we want the class benefits of receptor blockers. If the blood pressure controlled with calcium channel blocker also, we are using the second drug not only for reduction of blood pressure, but we also want the other potential benefits of ACE inhibitors or receptor blockers. That's how we tend to use combination. Next
Sure, sir.
question.
Yes, sir. So the last question, sir, while using two medications, which is preferable? Using two drugs, one in morning and other in night, or a combination tablet?
Yeah, that's how we said combination tablets increase the compliance levels to the patient. And if patient can take a combination therapy, one tablet once a day, that has the best compliance rates to the patient. But if you have to give the same combination twice a day, then if the all the both the drugs are long acting like amlodipine and telmisartan, it doesn't matter whatever you do it. But you should be taking care of the pharmacokinetics also. If you are using a losartan, suppose, then it has to be given twice daily. So you can't club losartan, give losartan in night once and then amlodipine in the morning once. So if that's how you have to see the pharmacokinetics of the drug also in deciding. But if you have both long-acting drugs, either way you give it is okay. There is some data which has come up that the ACE inhibitor receptor blocker usage in the nights can have slightly more benefits in decreasing the events in which happen in the early morning. So that's how people, some of them tend to use calcium channel blocker in the morning and receptor blocker, receptor telmisartan in the night. But if you are using a combination therapy, combining them and using twice daily could be beneficial to prevent the side effects of one with the other. So if you have to give a choice, probably combination of it, both combination tablet in the morning and evening could be better, especially if the patients have high blood pressures.
Sure, sir. I think we have addressed all the questions, sir, from the audience.
Alok mentioned
So,
here
sir,
in the
on
chat. Yeah, I think it's fine with me. Whatever you want to continue
yeah,
little, anybody else is there, it's okay. Otherwise, we can close.
yeah, yeah. Sure, sure, sir. So, sir, on behalf of the audience and Dr. Reddy, sir, I would like to thank you for sharing and deliberating us with your valuable experience. We would also like to thank all the doctors who have been part of this academic initiative and for sparing their valuable time this evening. We are sure that learnings and insights from this session will help you in your day-to-day clinical practice. Thank you all, and thank you so much, Dr. A. Srinivas Kumar, for a great session. Thank you.
Thank
Thanks
you.
a lot, sir.
Thank you.